local computer. And also would like to start a live Facebook session. Give me a few more minutes. Let me start and all right. It's been started in Facebook. Thank you one more time. I'll show you the agenda for today. So introduction to the TCA team and topic presentation by Mr. Raj. At the end, we have live Q&A and TCA helpline and donation opportunity at the end, and finally join. So this is currently our team. Chairperson Brahmendra Lakku, followed by Secretary Treasurer, and we have Executive Committee. I'm part of the Board of Director, and we have Senior Board of Directors Sivana Malagaru and also Rameshmal Reddy along with me. I'll be hosting this today's session. Thank you, TCA Executive Team, for pulling this off in a short time. This is our proud sponsors. By helping them, we're indirectly actually helping TCA to conduct this kind of programs. So I appreciate any participation with our TCA sponsors will be greatly appreciated. All right. I will start Raj. Raj introduction will be with the another PowerPoint slides. So let me start. So this I'm going to hand up to Raj. He will continue through the entire presentation. Then we'll go back to live Q&A. In between, if you have anything, by default, you guys are all muted, but you can post questions in the group chat or raise your hand. We'll try to see and answer. But you have your own time for asking any questions. With this, I'll hand up to Raj Garu. Raj Garu, you can start.
Thank you very much, Venkat. Namaskaram. My name is Raj. This program is being telecast live from Austin, Texas. Thanks a lot for TCA and Venkat and the team and everybody at TCA to organize this event on a Sunday evening. I am very excited to see there are over 60 people participating in this presentation. I want to set my agenda for today's event. I am a college admissions coach. I have a company called Admission Gurus, but my bigger passion is in talking to families, talking to students, and help them through their admission stuff. Personally, from a business standpoint, I am completely full for this year. I have absolutely no bandwidth to take any more clients. And so the point of me conducting the seminar is actually a result of this, that since I'm not able to take any more clients, I at least want to freely reach out broadly to as many people that I can and share everything that I know about college admissions so that you will have a framework to properly walk your son or yourself through the admissions process. That is the sole and only point of today's seminar. I'm talking to TCA today. Next week, I'm doing a presentation at Westwood, and week after at a lot of local Austin schools. It is a tough time for college admissions, both with COVID, but that's and the team and everybody at TCA Westwood, and week after So, sorry about that small technical difficulty. So that is the point of this presentation. I titled this Seeing Through the Fog because that is exactly how I see parents when they deal with college admissions or they're thinking about college admissions from middle school through all the way to high school. There is this fog, right? What do you do? What will matter? What doesn't matter? And so what happens is when you're in a fog, you don't know which direction you want to go. You do a lot of things. You try to peer through it. You're not even sure whether you're focused on the right direction. You're taking few steps. You're doing a lot of things. But if you cannot see what matters, where you need to go, it doesn't really matter how hard you're trying. So that is why I titled this Seeing Through the Fog to set the framework in terms of how do you channel through this. Venkat, next slide. Venkat, next slide. Okay, as I said, this presentation is solely intended to communicate and share knowledge to the community so the parents and students can have a successful admissions and education experience. I go by Coach Raj. Next slide, Venkat. So the next slide, I'm going to talk about, who I am. Oh, first of all, yes, I had this in the slide, a sincere thanks to the Telugu Cultural Association. Venkat, next slide. Okay. I live in Austin, Texas with my family. I'm a certified college admissions coach. I've interviewed for the University of Texas master's program, and I also am an alumni interview for Ivy League school. I have a master's in business administration from the Wharton Business School, University of Pennsylvania. I also have my master's in public affairs from the #2 program in the country, the Lyndon B. Johnson School of Public Affairs, the University of Texas at Austin. When I came from India, I initially pursued my master's in computer and biomedical engineering from the Cockrell School of Engineering at the University of Texas. It was a #3 program. I was also admitted to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, although I didn't attend it because I decided to go to UPenn. And I'm a member of the Mensa High IQ Society. I have, next slide, Venkat. I have been a college admissions coach. I put conservatively 10 years, but pretty much for most part of my life, which is at least twice that much. And I've coached students everywhere from when you think about college admissions and college admissions coach, uh, I think there's this conception that it's only for highly ranked colleges. I work with students that go to community college, all the way to students that go to Ivy League, direct admissions, as well as to Stanford and MIT. What I want to emphasize is this: I have a very, very broad experience, both from personally getting admissions myself to top schools, as well as coaching students to get into top schools all over the country. The information that you're getting from me is not based on the internet, not based on any other sources. It's just direct experience working with students, figuring out who can get to what college, who cannot get to what college, and how you can improve your admissions chances. And to the extent, I'm not going to keep any secrets in this meeting. You can post questions and ask me, what is the secret to get to MIT? How do you get a kid to MIT? How do I get a kid to Stanford? I will clearly answer that. So there are no secrets. The only thing I don't know is what your questions are. Your questions are good. I will definitely do my best to answer them without holding anything back. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so this is the agenda that Venkat put together. I just want to review it so that I can get into my head, and we also have a template that says learn college admission tips, strategies, branding. Okay, I think I'll definitely talk about it. How do you position yourself to top undergraduate and Ivy League schools? I will surely cover that. This parents is for middle schoolers, high schoolers. I will keep both these groups in mind. I will talk about pre-AP, AP, IB, and honors, what you need to go through this, what kind of extracurricular activities you need to do, PSAT, SAT, and ACT, and finally, how COVID-19 impacts on the college admissions cycle. This is directly out of the agenda that the TCA put out. Next slide, please. Okay, the first thing I thought I want to start is with facts. I work with parents all the time. I have a much larger people that I connect with than the students I actually work with. I can only work with a limited set of students, but so many people reach out to me for advice, coaching, and consulting. So the actual number of people I end up working in a particular year is close to 100, even though the number of students I work at any particular time is an extremely small fraction of that. And so looking through what happens when I talk to like hundreds of parents, what do I find? If you are in middle school or you're starting out as a high schooler, 9th, 10th, and perhaps even you're in 11th grade and you're applying to college, okay? Here are the facts that you need to keep in mind, because this is what causes the fog. Okay, let's go back to the fog. What causes the fog? This is what causes the fog. Over 80% of the students and parents have mismatched expectations between the student profile and admission chances. What that means is what you believe your capability is, your qualification is, and where you think you can actually get. Only 2 out of 10 of my contacts get it. So I interact with 100 people, maybe 15. I put 2 because when I'm doing out of 10, I can't do like 1.5, you know. But let's say I'm talking to 100 people. Maybe 15 match or have a really good understanding between who they are and where they can go. 9 out of 10 people, it is mismatched, which means that you are targeting and you're working on something that is never going to bear fruit. Okay. Second thing, and this is really sad, more than 50% of the activities that I see on the resume do not add any value. That's the unfortunate thing. So the students and everybody have put a lot of work, and I see the resume, and a lot of times I actually have to leave out and cut out a lot of work that the students have done. I will cover this, but keep this in mind. More than 50% of the discussions parents and students have regarding college admissions have no impact on the admission chances. There's all this discussion that happens, right? Which college to go, what to do, should we do this and should we do this? There's all of this discussion taking place. And 50% do not change your admission chances at all. So there is so much energy wasted within the family. There's so many energy wasted by the students doing activities in trying to gain an admission, and they don't have value. Then what do? You go and look at the internet. Unfortunately, most of the information regarding college admissions on the internet do not pertain to you. They always pertain to somebody else. I never, ever look at the internet for information. That says something, right? If I have a question, I call up the admissions office directly. I talk to them. I'll send an email and they will respond. Whatever facts they give me, whatever information they give me is the only information I know. Nothing on the internet I count, because many of them are false. And even if there is something that appears as an information, you have no idea how that pertains to you. Some candidate with some GPA got in. Like before coming to this call, a parent called me, one of my students' parents, and called me, hey, there was a student with the same GPA as my son who got into Stanford. Can my son also get into Stanford? I saw on the internet that this GPA and this SAT and this profile gets into Harvard. My son has the same GPA profile. It looks like he can also get in. The profiles on the internet and the information on the internet is so filtered out and so incorrect that you're wasting your time looking up for admission chances on the internet. There are things you can do on the internet, test dates, what's happening with COVID and all of that. But actual value add information that actually is going to change your admission chances, it's not on the internet. And here's the other part. I just reflected. I added this line later. I just reflected on my students who go to the Stanford, who go to MIT, and who go to Penn. Interestingly, they don't look at the internet. They don't. They bring stuff that is good enough to go to these schools. They don't have to see what's going on the internet. And finally, many summer programs are simply money-making scam that only resulted in wasted expenses with no real outcome. So this is our starting point. This is where a lot of parents are roughly at. I'd like to get, I don't know if we can do thumbs up or things like that, to just get a thumbs up in terms of, what do you think about these facts and things like that. That kind of helps this talk be little interactive. My question to you, which I'd like to see in comments, is, are you surprised by these facts? I'll give you like a few seconds to see some responses. Somebody said yes. I'm seeing a couple of yeses. Yes, especially the internet ones. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. And here is actually the second point. More than 50% of the activities on the resume do not add value. What kind of are you referring to when you say they do not add value? Okay, I think a good point. I like seeing these questions because that way when I explain it, I can keep that point in mind when you say, hey, what kind of activities that you're saying do not add value? And then the thing about the internet stuff, okay? So next slide. Okay. I also mentioned about, a lot of discussion, 50% of the discussion parents and students have are meaningless, do not add value, and a lot of college planning starts here, right? What should be your focus? Is it about careers? Is it about majors? Is it about college? And to me, it's none of the three. When I work on college admissions, and I have I give a roadmap to my students, right? I have to tell the parents, hey, we're going to be working on this thing now. We're going to be working on this thing now. We're going to be working on this thing now. And the thing that they're completely surprised is I put college at the bottom, college list. Where to go to college comes last. And that totally changes how they approach and how I approach, not how I approach or how it should be approached. Okay. And if I forget to talk about this point, why I talk about college at the end, why do I bring up the ultimate thing? Is interesting, right? You're doing college admissions, or whether you're doing it with me or whether you're doing it yourself, you're planning to go to college. And I'm telling you that talk about colleges at the end. So it's a very important point. If I don't talk about it, please remind me. Okay, next. Okay. The big point that I am trying to make when I say that things about careers, majors, colleges, all of these things don't matter. Let me give you an example. So when you apply to MIT, and a lot of my students, this year some students got in, there is not even a drop-down box to what major you want to do. MIT doesn't even care what major you want to do. And you can imagine that so many people, when they talk, spend so much time on majors, and there's not a drop-down box on their application to choose a major. And a lot of students, this is the amazing part, a lot of students who go to MIT have some idea what they want to do, but they don't have full clear picture on exactly what they want to do. And these are students going to MIT. Same thing when you go to Brown, it's the same thing. Brown is like even more open. There's no major. You go there and you design your own major and you go through it. When you go to Stanford, it's universal in the first year. It takes 2 to 3 years before totally figuring out what your major is. So here you have where we're talking about careers. we're talking about we're talking about majors, we're talking about colleges, and some of the greatest colleges in the world don't have a drop-down box on what major to do. Okay. The reason I say that those things don't matter is the fundamentals, the thing about going to college, getting an admission into the top schools, deciding your major and everything is completely a function of all the fundamentals that you put towards academic success. Okay. The more important things, like if you're from going from 8, 9, 10, and 11, if you're in that transition phase, or if you're even in 11th grade and you're going to be applying this summer for in another 3 to 4 months, the most important thing that matters is organization, structure, communication, and support for academic excellence. I'll tell you what that means, So these things mean different things to like different families depending upon where they are. If you are in 9th and 10th grade, the whole college admission stuff is completely irrelevant. Your job as a parent is only one thing, and that is to have a support structure for the child to do well in academics. I'll ask a very simple question. If your child is having a math problem, a math homework is due tomorrow. Dad and mom, fortunately, you guys are home now. But let's say that you were working and you were busy and they have a math problem that they have to turn in the next day, and both of you guys are not there to help. Who's your kid going to call? Is there a number that he has that he can phone, talk to somebody, and get questions answered? Right? Some basic stuff. Okay, I tell you what I do with my son. I have already paid a block of credits with some tutor, and he's connected with her on his phone. And anytime he has a problem with any subject, okay, he pings in just like a Calendly appointment. This person comes in and then takes care of the problem then and there. But even for me, the challenge wasn't paying the money and getting the tutor. My challenge was Vinay would not call. I had to force him to get him into the habit of calling and getting help. So there is this thing about setting up help and making the kids get into a mode that they should go and get help immediately. And that part the kids don't get. Some of the reasons is some of the technologies are also a little behind in terms of kids quickly reaching to like get me a tutor for 15 minutes. But fortunately, because of this COVID thing and a lot of learning going online, that is one thing that you could leverage very easily going forward, where your kids have access to support 8th, 9th, 10th, or whatever, to quickly get their questions answered. I'm talking about organization and structure. If you're in 11th grade and you are going to be applying for college, uh, you got to sit and think about it. You've got to sit and plan. You got to look at all the requirements. You have to figure out what are all the essays you're going to write. When are you going to write? Who is going to do a review? Whether your grades work for that particular school. A lot of planning and organization you have to do, right? But instead, if you're worried about, hey, which college will I get admission? What major I have to do, but not put the fundamental structure in place, then it does not matter all the discussion that you have about what college to do and what major to do. The organization and the planning part is completely missing. Communication, it's a challenge. Uh, I'm like no different. I could be a college admissions coach, but when it comes to my children, I'm the parent, right? And anything that somebody else tells them, they listen to it better than the same things that I tell them. That's how it works, and it's no different in my house than it is in another house. But where you can work through somebody, if you have a mentor or somebody else that can influence a child much better and you can work through them, you get far more results. So if you're beating around the bush trying to work with your child, and you don't have any leverage, you don't have any control over what they do, then get a mentor or find someone else through whom you can work. Otherwise, you're just going to clash with each other and it's not going to uh, work out. I put a thing over there, give organization example from client experience. I had a ninth standard student who came to me 3-4 months ago, and they were Asians. And of course, they're thinking about college in the long run, and they want to do all of the stuff. And when I talked to this guy, he had very basic issues. He was totally disorganized, poor time management skills, would do the homework but would not turn it in and all of that. And so while the parents were talking about it, college admissions, he was completely tuned out as a ninth standard kid, understandably. But when we really looked at the problem that they had to solve, it was the time management skills that he did not have. And when I picked that up and paid attention to that, and he told me, this is what I've been telling my mom, that I forget stuff, I'm not able to take it and turn in my homework. I don't know why I do that. He actually became interested when I started talking to him about a problem that he was dealing with. Than he was when his parents were talking about, hey, what should I do to go to MIT and Dartmouth? And because the dad was from Dartmouth, what should I do to get an admission in Dartmouth? That's where they spoke. And he was like, he's not able to turn in his homework. And I said, hey, why don't you go to the school and ask them, this is your stuff. What do they have? And apparently, he goes to a very good school district here, and they have a counselor to help kids organized with time management. I did not know that there was a person to do this. They go look at this stuff, and I said, if you cannot find somebody in the school, they were able to afford it. I said, why don't you get some external support to come and help with your child? But they found out in school itself, they had somebody who helps the kids with these kind of small issues. And they called and told me, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize. I just kind of put it out there, and turned out that they had a support structure. So when you're in ninth grade and in eighth grade, for the long run, this is going to be like a marathon, right? Towards getting to the big schools at the end. It's working on the basic time management, organizational skills, getting them the support structure they need far outweighs any other big things. Because once they have these basic things, then it's possible to add more and more workload in 9, 10, and 11 that they can absorb. Okay, so let's go to the next screen. Okay, what to do in middle school. All right, I know that there are some middle school students here. So you're like in a sixth grade summer, play Fortnite, grind. Don't sweat it at sixth grade itself. Go to India, chill, sleep, eat, and play. Just do some basic, just enjoy your child. Okay. When you come to seventh grade, I put here UT Prep or OSP Prep, and you guys can look this up online. Because I don't know where most of you are joining from, but when you look at UT Prep or OSP, you will find that keyword leads you to a page. And in that page, you will find some middle school program that is run out of the University of Texas at Austin. Something similar or equivalent would be a good thing to do in wherever location you are, okay? And in eighth grade, do any summer camp. I said, do any summer camp. And that the two main skills I focus on in eighth grade is speed reading and writing. A lot of high school parents, I want a yes or no from high school parents. If you're in high school, do you guys agree that the jump from middle school to high school was not like a step function or not linear. It was like a huge difference. Could I get a yes or a no from the high school parents so that the middle school parents feel validated? The kid does, and here's another thing that I'm going to say: the kids do excellent in eighth grade, and your parents are like looking at these amazing grades and go, "Wow, he will get into any college he wants," right? Because you're looking at your eighth grade grades, they're in tag, they do this, they do that, and a lot of things. And you come to ninth, it's like boom, it's like what happened, something just hits you. If you're a middle school parent, I think that's the only thing to anticipate. The delta is very big. The delta between middle school and high school is very big. And is the eighth grade summer going into ninth grade? Yes. When I'm talking about eighth grade summer, it is the summer always follows. Okay. When we talk about summer, it follows the academic year. So seventh summer is like you start seventh grade, seventh fall, seventh spring, seventh summer. So the summer is part of that particular grade. So for middle school parents, these are my golden words. The middle school performance mean nothing to performing at high school. Okay? And why I say that is you have to be abundantly prepared both psychologically as well as technically. Your son or daughter doing extremely well in middle school, got into all the tag programs and everything. And then when they come to high school, you're in a shock that they're like 150 out of 700. The first time they're ranked and the GPA is not as expected. It challenges your mind. What is he not doing well or whatever? I think if your son or daughter is doing the same thing that they're doing in middle school, except that the middle school is uh, not graded properly, the students are not evaluated properly, so they're getting a false impression that they're doing well. But in high school, it's a little more raw. They give a real GPA, everything counts. They give ranks every semester over here, just like India. And so that you are like 232 out of 736. That is when it really hits you, and you never have the data point in middle school. Everybody does well in middle school. Okay. And so now I'm coming down to I'm going to focus on middle school before I go there. So remember I talked about fundamentals, right? It's not about college. It's not about majors. It's none of that. It's the basic fundamental, and the basic fundamental comes to reading and writing. American school system during high school is extensively written work. And the hardest subjects are not necessarily math and science. The places where kids get B's are English and social studies. A lot of high school parents will know that. And unfortunately, those are the two subjects where even you as a parent, coming from India, it's extremely hard to help with your English. It's extremely hard to help them with your social studies, humanities. So while we are focused on STEM, hey, is he doing well in math and science? Here's the other thing. It's very easy to get a math tutor. Little more challenge to get a good science tutor, but you can still get it. But the place where they're making a B is in WAP, world history, social studies, English, what they call language arts. Those are the places where they're getting a B. And getting somebody to help your son or daughter with improving their skills in this area is very difficult. And that's exactly where they end up getting a cost in the college admissions. Now, I'm not saying that everybody does well in math relative to social studies. I'm talking on an average, math and science kids do well. If they don't do well, you can get help. If you cannot get help, you can sit down and teach them at least the algebra and some basic physics. but there is nothing you can do as a parent about reading and writing. That's why that part. So when you think about the long-term college admissions, focus on reading and writing. And what I mean by speed reading is that, think about this. Let's say that you read 100 words in 5 minutes, okay? And there is actually a concept called speed reading, and there are training courses and classes on speed reading. You can Google this. There is an academy called Iris Academy. There are many things that are about speed reading. And if you made a marginal difference, right, you improved your reading speed by 10%, which is like, instead of reading 100 words in 5 minutes, you're able to read, 110 words in 5 minutes, 10% improvement. That 10% improvement goes across all the subjects, right? Not just English, PSAT, SAT, ACT, world history, world geography, everything except math. And to some extent, even in science, it helps. So what you're trying to accomplish there are some kids that naturally read well, okay? They're able to comprehend the material by reading once, by reading fast. Speed reading teaches the students how to comprehend the material by reading faster than they normally do, whatever speed they are. If they're only reading 10 words per minute, 10 words in 5 minutes, maybe they will learn to read 12 words in 5 minutes. It might seem like a small improvement, but that's 20% improvement, which means that that 20% goes across all the subject, which means that there is less time you're spending to understand the concepts. There's a question, speed reading just...
Yeah, I think you answered, Raj.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So one question we have about this verbiage you used. When you say summer is going to be the next year, right? When you say 8th summer, that means entering into the 9th grade, correct?
Correct.
One last question on this topic. Please suggest good institutions and courses which offers help in speed reading.
Look at something called as Iris Academy. Okay. I sent my, here's, candidly, I'm telling you, I sent my older daughter to Iris Academy. She went, she found a remarkable improvement. She didn't naturally read a whole lot, and she improved her reading speed. And then as a parent, we have seen that, wow, it worked. And then I'm trying to get my second kid to go to the same program. He would not butt out of his video conferencing room, or whatever his Fortnite room. So I have a challenge in getting my second one, even though I know that this is good. So I have to find another counselor for him so that someone else can influence him than the influence that I have on him, So Iris Academy is one thing. You can Google and find out what is local. Any kind of, whether they call it reading program or a speed reading program, any kind of reading program that you do in 8th summer or 7th summer will pay a lot of dividends. What does not pay dividends, right? All the extracurricular activities that you're doing during middle school, somehow in preparation, that it'll help you in high school, right? You do this thing in middle school, and you think that you will build on that foundation or take it through high school. Most of the time does not work, because in middle school you had a lot of time. You can do taekwondo, you can do tennis, you can do lots of sports, you can do many different things. And when you get to high school, as I said, the delta is so high, you barely have time to do school. And then what happens is, a lot of parents, I say, what happens is, what is the academy name? Iris. Yes, it is called Iris Academy. I have no relationship with them other than I Googled one time and I sent my daughter there. They fortunately had a physical session here very close to my house. So it worked out great. And we did that during a summer at 9th grade. Okay. So chess course and all of that, coming to that. So a lot of these extracurricular activities that you're doing in middle school that you think will carry over to high school, they don't, because your student may not have the time to excel in sports the way they were able to excel in middle school. The only thing that will carry forward is the reading and the writing skills. 100% guaranteed. Any other skill totally depends upon luck to be able to carry through high school. When I say any other skill, I will answer your question about if I don't, please remind me about chess and things like that, so that I can tell you what kind of extracurricular activities matter. I will give you a framework, and then based on that framework, you can decide whether that chess score matters or not. Okay, so instead of like answering you a good uh, a specific answer, the framework will help you answer for no matter what you do, as well as for all other parents. And there is also a question about what good rank. Also, how many ranks can you climb in the next 3 years? Okay, I think those are a good question. It depends upon where you want to go. So I will give you the rank numbers for what you need to get into Ivy League schools. You know, right up, I will give you this. I will also give you the rank to get into the next best list of Ivy League schools, and I'll also share you the names of the schools. There's one thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go and open up my other laptop and bring up the list of the top 10 schools. Okay.
Before you go, Raj, how you spell IRIS? Many people ask.
IRIS.
IRIS. All right. I think you need to unmute.
Yeah. So what I had is I pulled up the college ranking, and in the beginning I promised you, hey, I'm going to clear through the frog. Most of the parents are mismatched between their expectations of where they can get admission and what their actual student profile is. So to quickly talk about the schools that I'm talking about in the top level, okay, we're talking about Princeton, Harvard, Columbia, Stanford, MIT, University of Chicago, UPenn, Dartmouth, Brown, Duke, Caltech, the Ivies, MIT, and Stanford. Okay, the average rank to get into a school like this would be somewhere in the top 10 ranks, or maybe between the top 10 and top 20 ranks out of 600 to 800 students. That's your number. Out of that range, your chances drop to like 80%. I've never had anybody generally beyond that range get into a top school. I have a separate session on getting into top schools. But since I keep mentioning about top schools, I just wanted to like kind of go and put a data point out there so that you know exactly what you're talking about. Also, there's questions about, hey, we don't have a ranking system. There is a ranking system one way or another. The school may not issue your child a very specific rank, but the school does two things. They send a school profile, and the school profile is something like, this GPA to this GPA is in falls within the top 5%. This range to this range falls within the top 10%. If you Google and look for sample school profile and go to images, you will find a document that says 80% of the students in this school take an AP class and score 4 or more. Now, if your son or daughter does not have a 4 or more, that's an indication about where they stand in the school. So they can even figure out from AP test. Then they also give ranges saying that, hey, this GPA is in this range, this GPA is in this range, this GPA is in this range. So because of that, the schools do know what a student's GPA is, even though there is no rank. Also, the schools do not randomly look at students. They have specific officers that know about your school. If your school does not rank and only has a GPA system, what you don't know is this: the admissions officers visit the school, they talk to the counselor, they ask them, what does this GPA mean? They have detailed notes about your school. So when you say that, when students say, hey, my school GPA does not rank, it gets a little bit difficult in terms of knowing where you are, whether you're in the top 5 or you're in the top 10%. But nonetheless, the counselor can kind of give you an idea where you are. Are you in the top 5%, top 10%, and top 15%? And if you're not in the top 5% range, then most of the top, the top schools, um, actually, if you're not in the top 3%, most of the top schools that I just said, which is the 8 Ivies, MIT, and Stanford, are out of your view. Okay. Then there was question about English grammar and things like that. Don't worry about it. No matter what, the way the English is taught in America is very, very different. They do this thing called as rhetorical analysis, which we never did in India. For example, they will give a passage and ask the students, if the author was to continue this passage, what would he write? Okay, we never learned English that way. So you really have to understand. Now, it doesn't really matter whether you write in the right grammar or wrong grammar. I don't think so. They pay a whole lot of attention to the grammar here in this school, okay? Because the essays that I get from the students are so horrible in terms of English. Even the best ones, the ones that end up going to like Ivy League schools, the English is not the same level of English we're taught in India in terms of how grammatically correct it is. They still write wanna, kinda, woulda. They don't. They literate everything. So the English is not at all formal. So don't worry about the grammar, but their analysis. They're thinking about what the author is thinking. They're thinking about what next book the author would write, or they are thinking about what happened if this character died in chapter 3. How would the conclusion would have reached? It's very scientific kind of reading and writing. That is why the reading is hard here. And the writing is like uh, a lot of, they use what a lot of literary devices and things like that. It's a very flowery kind of writing, using many mechanisms, very less to do with grammar and more to do with style. Okay. So when I say that grammar is not important, it doesn't mean that, you write in broken English. What I mean by saying is, yes, you need to understand basic grammar, but there is far more to grammar, far more to reading and writing than just grammar. The passage analysis that comes in the SAT exams has less to do with grammar and more to do with analysis. So we've answered a lot of middle school questions. I want to go to the high school, and many of these things we can take back in the Q&A.
Exactly right.
Now that you've come to high school, right? So what happens? So ninth grade, do online classes, do volunteer work, do any summer camp. The reason I'm saying like do all of this is because you're kind of exploring. You don't know which way you're doing, what matters, what counts, and things like that. So just explore a lot of stuff to figure out where you might be leaning, one way or another. When you come to 10th grade, here is a secret for a lot of people who are in 10th grade, and those who are already in 10th grade will know this. 10th summer, which means that the fall semester you attended the 10th, the spring semester you attended the 10th, and then in spring, and then in summer, you're going to summer programs, okay? When you go to a summer program, there is a resume. A lot of people ask for a resume, the kid's resume, or they have like an activity section, or you have to write an essay. Why do you want to be selected for this program? When you have to write that essay, imagine starting from a blank resume versus at least having something in your resume is about the things that you did in ninth grade, right? The random work. Blindly close your eyes and just do something. And you're doing something not because that something actually is the direction you're going to go, but the summer things that you want to get in 10th will not work out if you had nothing in your ninth. And don't worry about whether it is about business or science or STEM, engineering, robotics, whatever it is, do something. It's like, from a parent's perspective, remember you got your first job, right? To get your first job, you needed to have a job experience. And without the job experience, you couldn't get the first job. So it was a chicken or an egg situation. The kids are also like that. Okay. They need a resume. They need to put something in there. And your kid might be going to robotics, and that's what they do want to do in 10th grade. And in ninth grade, you come across a program that deals with biology and another program that does with business. You're not able to find any robotics program. It's okay. Just go and do something. It will show that you went outside your class and you learned something. And you can use that as a reason to get some of the things in 10th grade that you otherwise would not have gotten. And when you come to 11th grade, that is where you secure pivotal internships, secure research position, and secure meaningful work. I will talk about what these things are when I say the word. Yes, we will have a Q&A at the end of the session. And when I talk about the pivotal internship, what that means and all of that, I will cover there. So ninth grade, do whatever you want. 10th grade, leverage what you did in ninth grade to at least kind of triangulate towards your side. And when you come to 11th, there are places where the admission chances for a summer program is harder than getting into some Ivy League schools. Okay, please post only questions. Okay, all right. Okay. Talk about the 10th summer. So the 10th summer items, secure jobs and attend conferences. 10th is by the time they're 10th grade, be a little more independent than they are in ninth. You can go leave them in a place in the morning, and they can work until the night, until the evening, over a long period of time. COVID changed something, and it's actually for the good. Some good summer programs are very rare, extremely rare. I struggle to get good summer programs for students. So I'm at this point, I'm covering, remember I said most of the summer programs are scams. I'm going to exactly tell you what summer programs matter and what do not matter. So the things that you do in ninth grade and exploratory work in eighth and all of that, it's fine. It's just exploration. The things that matter in 10th grade is a summer program, and if you want, you can write it down. A summer program has two attributes, two very important attributes. There's only two things you need to do to check whether a program is good or not, good or bad. One, it should be low fees, very low fees, zero fees, or they pay you. Okay? And it should be long. So programs that cost nothing to almost paying you, to programs that are long, are excellent programs. Programs that are shorter and cost a lot of money are horrible programs. It's just a scam. Okay? There are so many summer programs where parents can swipe their credit card and your kid will get an admission automatically. It's okay as a backup in case you do not get into any good summer program. Okay, and I keep those in my back pocket. I only apply for programs that are cheap, dirt cheap, and are longer in sessions. Do you know why a longer in session and a cheap program is good? That means that you're not paying the true cost of the program. The program actually costs something like maybe it's $5,000, and you're paying only $1,000 for an 8-week program. Someone else is paying the remaining $4,000 on your behalf. And the only reason someone else is paying the remaining $4,000 on your behalf is they have seen the benefit of the program, and they are funding it on your behalf so that you can learn. Okay, so when you look for a lot of private organizations doing summer stuff, and the average cost of a summer program by a private organization is like $1,500 a week. Programs that run about $4,000 to $6,000 over a short period of time, like for example, Harvard immersion, Stanford immersion, Yale immersion, $6,000 for 3 weeks. Waste of money. I sometimes I have to literally beg my students' parents not to go for that, and beg them not to attend, because they're just wasting the money. It makes zero impact on their college admissions. You should never go to like Harvard or Stanford or Yale and pay money to do like a summer class. You can do that if you had nothing else to do. You can do that in 9th grade because your son is young or your daughter is young. They don't have any transportation. You happen to have like maybe a Johns Hopkins or another great university behind you, and they're running some summer for-profit camp. Go and attend it, right? I said just do whatever you want in 9th grade. But by the time you come to 10th grade and 11th grade, you're looking for, here is an example. You can go and search UT Tides, UT for University of Texas, space Tides, TIDES. And when you look at the program, it's $1,800, 6 to 8 weeks of real research. There is no starting time, there is no ending time. Research happens every time. So I'm giving you attributes of how to know what is a good program. They don't have a starting date, because they're going to pull you in whenever they need help for research. They don't have an ending date, because research does not end on a specific date. I will contrast this with a summer program that is not useful. It has a starting date. You go in and they have a welcome kit and they give you a bag and you have a t-shirt, right? And they give you the summer program t-shirt. And then there's an end date where you graduate and they give you a nice little certificate and you walk home with it. It's worth nothing. Okay, The good ones don't give you certificate. They don't have time to print certificates. They don't print t-shirts because their focus is on learning. I'm going to give you, yes, UT Tides. You can search for UT Tides. Just like I gave an example for middle school, like something called as AUSPREP, AUSPREP, just to serve as a model to what you should be looking for in middle school. UT Tides Summer Research, High School Summer Research Program will give you a model of what a good summer program is. And here's the best part. When you do the UT Tides research program, they give you 3 college credits. So not only you're doing research for like eight weeks, you get 3 college credits. This is not like your AP credit. No, you get printed on your college transcript. You can use that at Stanford to get 3 credits if you go there. So we're talking about college level research experience done as a high school student. That's the caliber that you're looking at. Okay. And now certificate, see, the places that give out certificates and things like that want to show that, yes, they're giving out certificates. Most good programs don't give certificates. There are so many programs at MIT. You just go, you come, it's no certificate, there's no t-shirt, nothing. You go there, you do real work, you do real research, and you come home. Don't worry about certificates and all of that. They're never going to ask you. You can never ever lie on the college applications. The cost is too much. Anytime they find out that you lied for any reason, no matter what point in time in your life, the colleges can pull out your degree even after 10, 15 years after you graduated. So because of this huge risk and audit that they randomly audit few students, you should never ever lie on your college applications. If at all you get audited very randomly, you just have to say, yes, I attended this thing. Here is an email that is asking me to show up. You can call them and verify. It's not like India where you need to have certificates. When my students tell me they did this, this, and this, I don't ask for certificates. I just go them. Sorry. Is there any website to find summer programs like UT Tides elsewhere? Coming down to that. So I have told you exactly what summer programs you should strive for. I also started by saying that I struggle for summer programs because the good ones are very, very few. There are not a lot of Here's one thing that, as part of an exercise, right? As part of a small homework for parents, you can do this. Go to Stanford and go and look at Stanford summer programs. You will find a list that comes up, gobs and gobs and gobs of listers. $3,000, $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 to $12,000. Okay, and then somewhere along this list, there is a program that says zero. There's another program that says zero, and there's another program that says $1,500 scholarships per month. So they're paying you to come there. Okay, and that's kind of hidden out of 100 programs that Stanford has. So it's a challenge even for me to go and pick out those 3 programs out of those 100 programs that Stanford has. Somewhere at Harvard, 90% of the summer programs are like some of these useless summer programs. And then maybe like 2 to 3%, there is a really awesome program in Harvard that you should attend. But the first thing that they showcase to you is the moneymaker ones, the weekly $1,500 one. That's what they showcase. The good ones are kept at the back. It takes time. I think that when you ask for like, is there a list? I can say that I have a personal list that, like as I said, the Stanford program, the UT program. At UPenn, when you go and look for summer programs, there are 2 kinds of programs. One is a money-making program, and at UPenn, there is another free program. It teaches you trading, and it gives you articles to respond. And here's what happened. It's completely free. It is called UPenn Summer High School. you can participate in that program. So they will post different articles, and your job is to go and respond and write to these articles. The professors evaluate your articles, and then whichever topic that is, right? Finance, science, engineering. The professor, if he's written a book or things like that, they personally sign and autograph the book and send it to you. Okay, I want you to take a minute and imagine this thing. You're applying to UPenn, okay? You attended a free online program at UPenn where you were commenting on articles in finance. And then Professor Michael Hussein, who was my professor, great professor in leadership, evaluated my writing and sent me a signed copy of his latest book. I put that in my college applications essay. This is what happened. Can you imagine how impactful that would be relative to attending a summer program where you spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000? Okay. Penn also has a trading program. A group of kids can get together. They get free money. Free money is virtual money. You learn to trade as high school students, and then you trade and you go to like different levels. And then finally, the top teams, they invite you to UPenn free, and you go there and you compete. So I cannot say there isn't like a list. This thing changes every year. I started by saying I struggle myself because every year I have to go and separate out the 95% of the useless ones with the 5% of the useful program every school offers. Of course, based on experience, I can hunt better more than you do, but at least I have given you a framework for what to look for. So I've told you Stanford has some free programs, unpaid programs. UPenn has lots of free programs, and 90% of them are paid. So this is how you figure out what the summer program is. And when someone asked me what to do, what can you talk about the 10th summer? Can you say what that is? This is what I'm talking about. Okay. So I covered a lot on summer programs, and I'll tell you why. I hope that I saved you money by not sending your kids to programs that do not matter.
Quick question on that, Raj. It's very popular, at least in the Indian community, the Duke tip program. You think it is also a scam or it's really useful?
So, fantastic question. When you look at Duke Tip, right? There is the paid version of the program and then the scholarship version of the program. So Duke Tip is exactly the same thing. Duke Tip has many varieties, and then at the lowest level, there are programs, like even when you apply, it tells you, submit all of these scores and you get into Duke Tip. And if you don't get qualified with your scores to some of the really good programs, then you do the normal, pay as you go. You pay cash, you get admission. So there is a scale within Duke Tip. Some of the things about Duke Tip is we Indians have gone. I've never sent any of my clients to Duke Tip because I think that ground has been like mowed so much that to keep my students distinctive, I don't send them there.
Yeah, I think you answered it.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely a good learning experience. They do put together one of the good learning programs, okay? And I think those are some things that you can do in 9th as a backup in 10th. They're good, okay? But there are lots of hidden gems as well. Duke Tip was the most popular one. You went and everybody went, and I think the whole program is running because of Indian community. And here's the other unfortunate thing that I was saying. So last year, one of my students was participating in this UPenn program where you comment on professors' research. And I said, the professor, it's sort of like an essay analysis, right? You write an essay and they give you feedback, and then they post it on their website as winners. They send it on their Twitter. They send you books and all of this. I got really upset because I come from Chennai, Mylapore, and there's a school called Padma Seshadri. This high school kid from Padma Sheshadri, who's never even going to come to this US, won the competition. I'm like, why are you spoiling our trip here? You know, here I am trying to help my students win it, and I'm competing with a guy in India.
Wow.
Okay, so I mentioned that because a lot of popular grounds, we as Indians have dreaded it. And so I think we should do, as parents, we could do a little more homework and search for these gems that are out there, so that it's a little better. So I need to move on beyond summer programs because we're just stuck with summer, right? So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so now we're talking about what it takes to get into the top schools. This portion of the meeting is really about who goes to the top schools. So Venkat, click the slides. Okay, this is admissions to MIT, Ivies, and Stanford, and go ahead and click a couple more times. Okay, top schools look for this: a well-rounded class with unique interests, talents, and personality who will bring prestige and honor to the school upon graduation. This is what top schools look for. They are looking for students like, how did Harvard hire Obama, right? When you look at all the great schools, they have a way to find students who are later on, 20 years from now, are going to be a president, is going to be a CEO, is going to be somebody. Some of it is also because they attended the schools, but the other portion is also they do have the talent and the schools are able to pick it out. Okay. Right there, I want to emphasize something. You will hear this thing called as well-rounded, well-rounded, well-rounded. What they're really talking about is a well-rounded class. They are not talking about you being well-rounded. So they want to put together a class of various interests and personality to make the class well-rounded, not to make not you yourself be well-rounded. Okay, so next slide. Okay, I think I'm waiting. Venkat, next slide. Okay, the challenges in securing admission to top schools. They are unique. There definitely is a uniqueness. Like, there are some students that it's far more easier to get them an admission to MIT, but there's no way I can get them to Brown. Even the Brown is not even close to MIT in terms of ranking. There are some students that can go to Stanford, but will never get to Harvard. And vice versa. There are students that will get to Caltech, but won't get into Carnegie Mellon. And the reason is all of these top schools have a flavor. It's not the same. It's definitely not. I think you have to imagine this. The best example from India is like how you go from one state to another state. You know, the culture, the food, everything is different. The only thing is we're all Indians. So the only thing that is common with all the top schools for like they all pick amazing students, but the students that they pick are very, very different. And at the top level, okay, let's say you're in top 2 or 3% of the class. Okay, now I'm talking about that because for the rest, this is not even an option. So let's say you're in the top 2 or 3% of the class. So when I say lack of knowledge of the admissions process, what I mean is they don't really figure out, even with their grades, which college or university they would actually fit better. Okay, the admission chances, we don't have to get into this now, but just hear me out. The admission chances between early decision and regular decision is so far, it's so different. As an example, at Harvard, the with an early action or an early admission, 1 in 6 to 7 students get admitted to Harvard. That looks amazing, right? 1 out of 6 students to 1 out of 7 students get admitted to Harvard. It looks like really very appetizing. Hey, anybody can kind of get in. But that's not true. A lot of students who apply to Harvard are already at the top of the class and only they apply. Otherwise, they don't even apply. But when 1 out of 7 students or 8 students get admitted in early action, when it comes, that is like a 15% admission rate. Harvard's overall admission rate is 3%, which means during the regular decision time, they pick maybe like what, 2 or 3 out of 100. That's how you can get to an average of like, a 3% overall average. So when you are applying for early decision, you really need to be sure which school you fit better, because the chances of you getting admitted during the early decision is so high. But if you mismatch yourself with that school and you go to like regular decision, now it becomes very random. It's so unfortunate that a student that is ranked number 2 or 3 applied in an early decision to Dartmouth when his profile matched Brown better. And he would have wanted to go to Brown. But he applied to Dartmouth. He didn't fit the Dartmouth personality. He did not fit the profile. And here's the other thing. Nobody from his school has ever been admitted to Dartmouth. So what are the odds that he is going to be the first kid that is ever going to be picked from Dartmouth? On the other hand, if he had gone and looked at his school statistics in a program like Naviance or any of those databases, he would have found that a lot of kids went to Brown. And so he should have applied to Brown. Just last week, we went through, there is a system called Naviance that the school has, which tracks where all the students go. And very interestingly, very, very interestingly, the way we were thinking about college list, as I said, I look at the college list last. I was going through this Naviance. So many kids from his school went to Carnegie Mellon. Extremely tough school. But guess what? They didn't get admission in other schools. And I told their parents, what do you think? They said, Raj, Carnegie Mellon, we're going for early decision. If we get out, we don't get in. The data shows that this school supplies a lot of kids to Carnegie Mellon, not to Brown, not to Dartmouth, not to Yale, not to MIT, not to Stanford, just Carnegie Mellon. So we're going to do Carnegie Mellon. Now, if it works, it works. If it didn't work, then there wasn't any other place where he would have gotten admission either. Okay, so that's what I mean by saying lack of knowledge of admission process. The next 4 things are general. It is just not about top schools, but I'm talking about the tier that is right next to the top schools. So the tier right next to the top schools are schools like Georgia Tech, Johns Hopkins, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, University of Michigan, University of Washington at St. Louis, Purdue University, Maryland University for computer science, University of Texas, Texas A&M for engineering, any program at Rice University. All of this are like just not in terms of learning, by the way. There are some of these schools are much better than the IVs, but I'm just saying in terms of challenges, this next range of schools, right? Those are really, really good targets for those that are between the 5 to 15% range. Okay, I promised you in the beginning that I'll clear through the cloud, and I have given you exact statistics. You want to think about the IVs and MIT, be in the top 5 or top 3%. Then I said you want to look at the next best set of schools, and if you're like in the 5 to 15%, then these are the schools you should look at. Obviously, the people that are closer to the 5% will have a much better chance than the people that are out there at the 15% end. But schools like Georgia Tech, Wisconsin, Maryland, Purdue, Illinois, or University of Texas, Rice, Texas Austin, Duke, Notre Dame, Northwestern, California, Berkeley, USC, UCLA. These are all like the next band. Okay. So if you have a kid that is very good, but not the creme of the creme, I strongly urge you to study these schools because there's a high probability that you plan for these schools. They're excellent schools. You can actually get an admission and go there. Okay. And Ivy League admissions and Ivy League applications are extremely hard to prepare, takes very time consuming. Every Ivy League admission that you apply takes away your chance from applying to a school that you otherwise would attend and actually get admitted. I also want to say that many students don't feel fulfilled if they do the admission process and did not apply to MIT and did not apply to Harvard. I think you should go and do it just so that you can get it out of your system. However, that is just for like a couple of schools, just so that you can say, I have many students come and tell me, Coach, I'm never going to get in, but I want to just apply. I completely respect it, and we apply 100%, but we're realistic that we're actually trying to get to Urbana-Champaign Computer Engineering. We're trying to get to Michigan. We're trying to get to Georgia Tech, but we're also satisfied that we applied to Stanford because that has always been a dream. Okay. Um, all right, next slide. We will keep going. Okay, so let's just stop at this slide and then click the question, click the mouse a couple of times. Okay, so what I have here is click it a few more times. One more. Okay. Most students have a very diversified set of extracurricular activities where the school has no idea where the student is going to go. That is what is called as a ball. Remember I said in the beginning that 50% of the activities are like useless. That is because they're in many different directions. You get a candidate like that, like you don't know what to do with it, okay? Then there is an arrow candidate. He is absolutely, you know what he is, what he brings. He may not fit all the schools, but the schools he fits, he will be the perfect candidate. Somebody asked me about a question on chess, and this is where exactly it comes. Is the chess course somewhere like a ball or somewhere in between like a football, or is it more like an arrow, like completely standing out that he's the amazing chess player in the entire state? That counts. If he's just getting chess points, that kind of makes it look like a football. Probably not. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Next slide. Okay, we always hear this thing called as standing out, right? Very difficult to stand out, because who are you competing with? You have to compete with so many people, right? When you want to stay stand out, you don't know what is it you're trying to stand out. There's always somebody better than you who's standing out. Next slide. Defend your island. What I mean by that is create whatever that island is. And someone asked about chess. If you got a chess and you've done something amazing with chess, and you are the guy in chess, right? And there's not even anybody close. And maybe it is playing chess with pink coins, and you you play chess on a billiards pool table, and you're the number one guy in that world. You're defending your island. You will not appeal to many places, but the few places you appeal to, you are the king. Next slide. And that's where we will stop. So how do you make your island? Internships, extracurricular activities, volunteer work, jobs, all of this will put a very clear demarcation of what your island is. You get to define what your island is. You try to be the king of that island, whatever that might be. There was a guy who got admitted into Stanford. He makes the amazing matchbox houses. There might be somebody who makes the amazing rubber ball made with rubber bands, right? That guy has an island and he defends it. He won't get into Dartmouth, but he will get into Stanford. Okay. And of course, how do you validate your island? It's your resume, your recommendation letters, your stories, and your interviews. So to summarize it, let's start with from the beginning. I talked about clearing the fog. The kind of fog that I've cleared out for you is I've said most of us have mismatched expectations between what we can get and what we actually can get. I talked about so much of the conversation on activities are useless because when you looked at the metaphor of the ball, arrow, and football, it is like if the activities most of the time are like a ball, we don't know in which direction it is going. Then I talked about, okay, what do you do in middle school? How do you get started? And what is and I spent a lot of time, you know, if there is any reason that you should donate money to TCA, it should be just that statement about what I told you guys about summer programs, because Duke Tip and JHU programs are all reasonable, but there I would encourage you to go out of the beaten path and find some other programs as well. So look for other programs and stand out, in a very different way. I gave you exact numbers in terms of what it takes to get to the top 10 schools, top 15 schools, and what those schools are and what rank you need to be in class. I also told you, like, shy of the top, being in the top 5%, if you're in the 5 to 15% range, you should really focus on the schools that I told you, because you probably have a reasonably good chance of admissions there than wasting your time on other schools where you would not get an admission. Then we came down to, hey, what does it take to get admissions to the top schools? There, you have to be an arrow. You have to be I talked about, mismatch. So the mismatch comes from your arrow, but there are certain targets that you have to hit with that arrow, right? And that is where a really good knowledge about which school you can target during early decision, which tremendously increases your chances by several fold, would work. So you need to point the arrow first of all, you have to become an arrow. And then the next thing is you need to point the arrow in the right direction. And then finally, I said that how do you become an arrow? You create your own island. If it is chess, if it is tennis, if it is anything, taekwondo or whatever, you have to be the best at it. And when I'm talking about best, I'm talking about to get to the top schools, we are talking about being close to the national level. Points and things like that are very hard to translate or very, very difficult. I have one student and I have him only one goal for him. I want him by the time he finishes his 11th grade. He does not know what, by the way, remember I told you, a lot of kids that go to top schools do not do a research on the internet and do not know what major is. He does not know what his major is. He can be a doctor, whatever he is. I have only asked him to become the number one in the country or the top 3 in the country in debate. That's it. He's somewhere around top 15 to top 25 right now. And I've said at the expense of everything, right? Don't do anything. At the expense of everything, just get to the top 5, top 3, or become the number one in the country in debate. Once you become that, you can apply to any major you want. You can apply to any school you want. You will get an admission. So he does not have tons of stuff wasted. One activity, national level. So I hope I've given you a good framework. It's 91 minutes. So I am going to stop and thank you all patiently for listening to me. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm very thrilled to have so many people ask me questions and listen to my time. So this is, if you want to leave, it's fine. If you want to ask questions, please type your questions. And Venkat, if you can read me the questions, then I can answer.
So you don't want to go through the next slides, Raj?
No, I think this is a good time to stop. The next slides are informational. So
we'll go real quick. I think most of the people, nobody actually questioned about the timing. So unless
okay, fine. Let's go to the next. I can quickly go to this. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Do IB gives you an advantage or not? No, IB does not give you any advantage over AP. AP does not give you any advantage over IP. Do whatever it is that you're good at. Do good high schools give you an advantage? The number one advantage you get is a high school. High school is more important. The high school that you go to is more important than your GPA, than your rank, than anything else. High school is the single biggest factor that determines whether you can get to top universities. You should go and talk to your counselor and find out which colleges your students are most likely to get selected. Where are they getting offers for admission? Remember, I told you that example. We found very fortunately, or whatever, that Carnegie Mellon was the right spot for for that school, not other schools. There are probably a lot of easier schools to get admission, and the kid won't get admission there. But there is Carnegie Mellon is very difficult to get admission, and he is likely to get admission there. And how do we know that? Talking to counselors, talking to looking at Naviance. Should you take the SAT, SAT, or no? It doesn't matter whether you take the SAT or SAT, or I meant to say ACT. You can take anything. Should you take AP subject? Says definitely your APs are very important. You have to take those. Texas admissions, if you are in Texas admission, if you're not in the top 10% of the class, you are sort of out. I was telling Venkat and all my other students that have previously passed out, if you're outside the top 10% in Texas, it would be very difficult to get admission. Here's another money-saving tip. You do not have to go on college tours. It does not make any difference on your college admission chances. You should go on a college tour so that you can have fun looking at that place. You want to go to Princeton and enjoy, going for like New York and looking at Princeton and things like that, just kind of to get a feel. It has zero impact on your admission chances. Most students who get admission to top schools have never visited the top schools. And if ever, here's some very important tip. Keep it in mind. If ever you want to go to a college admissions tour, go to colleges that you won't consider. Okay? A lot of what I have told you has been counterintuitive, right? Most parents go and tour Harvard, MIT, Brown, Dartmouth, Yale, Princeton, Johns Hopkins, and all of these things. As if they didn't tour those colleges and they got an admission, they're not going to send the kid. I mean, oh, you got an admission in Harvard. We didn't look how Harvard looked. How can we send you there? No, right? Whether you toured those colleges or not, those are good colleges. You don't have to look into them. Look at the other colleges that you're not considering and go tour them. The schools that you're not totally thrilled about and not totally thinking, try to learn about those schools. Right? The schools that you're definitely going to go, whether or not you make a college visit, makes no difference with that college visit. Because first of all, the college visit makes no difference on your admission chances. So if the college visit doesn't make a difference on your admission chances, why don't you look at colleges that appear good and you're not too sure, should I go check it out? How does Urbana-Champaign look? How does Purdue look? How does University of Maryland look? How does Wisconsin look? These are all fantastic colleges. So go look at those colleges that are not in your line of view and you're not considering it. So you might actually feel excited about going there if you get an admission. Okay. So that was another big money saving tip. Then come to the next slide. So click this through really quickly. If you are thinking about a pre-med program, that's the other thing. A lot of us have gone down the pre-med route. There are three possibilities, right? So for those students who are carefully choosing the majors to do pre-med, this is how you need to sort out your admission decisions. Of course, there is something called as guaranteed medical school, which is like, at 12th standard, you get admission into a medical school. One of my clients, she's just graduating. straight from 12th grade, Baylor Med. She is a doctor, right? After 12th grade, she goes to undergraduate school at Rice, goes to Baylor, she's done. No problem there. Chances are very, 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 very difficult, but that's a guaranteed program. Then you have this thing called as structured pre-med programs, where if you're thinking about pre-med, pre-med is not a program. Pre-med is an initiative. It's not a major. You have to go to the college and find out exactly how they are going to support the student become a doctor. The support structure has to be there. Remember, I talked about in the beginning, your students need to have a support structure to excel. The foundation and the support are the most important things. Similarly, let's say you have like 4 or 5 pre-med colleges, right? You can do biology in any college. How do you choose where to do a pre-med? Go to a college where there is an extremely strong support to becoming doctors. It's called a structured pre-med program. They don't even use the word structured, but you will see that every year they give them support and things like that. Then the last one is called Club Med, which is like a golf club type of pre-med. Kids like to say, I'm in pre-med. Parents like to say that the kids are in pre-med as if they're really doctors already. And they go to school, they say they're doing pre-med. They're actually kind of like in a club sorority. They're really not doing any activities. They're really not getting good GPA. There is no support structure, advising and things like that, keeping sure that they're focused. The kids tell their parents, I'm doing pre-med. Parents are telling everybody else, my child is doing pre-med. It's almost a doctor, right? And then they graduate. There's nothing. There's no profile. There's no grades. There's no internships. There is nothing to become a doctor. And I deal with so many students like that where parents come and say, oh my God, my daughter went and did chemistry because she wanted to go to medical school. Her GPA is 3.4. She has no no medical related experience. What do I do now? She didn't do chemistry to become a chemist. We thought we were going to medical school. Should we go to India? Should we go to Caribbean? I deal with that stuff, and it's a pretty sad state because now you've lost. There's nothing to do. Medical schools require a GPA of 3.75 or above. Okay, so either you get into the top one, which would be awesome, or you go and ask the school. Here's very important: go and ask the school, what percentage of the students from your pre-med program go to medical school? And here's an amazing statistics of all the amazing schools that are there in Texas, right? Rice, University of Texas, Baylor, San Antonio, UT Austin, all the amazing schools. There is one extremely small school in Sherman, Texas. It's a village outside Dallas called Austin College. They have the highest per capita students going into medical school, which means that out of the percentage of students that are applying to medical school, they have the highest percentage in the entire state. And nobody knows about that school. Okay? You need to, because they have an amazing, they put it on their website. You can go and check it out, Austin College, and you will see something like 20-25% of their students become doctors. At UT, it is like 5%. So they beat UT by 300 to 400%. Okay, so that is the kind of thing that you need to have for pre-med. Next slide. This is mostly informational. How do you show your profile? What does your recommendation letter show you? What does your essays show you? What does the interview show you? How do you define who you are? So I prepared this template for high school students who are applying to college so that you could keep this in mind. The recommendation letter is about who the people you interact with think who you are, okay? The essays is about who you think you are. And then the interview is who the school that you're applying to thinks you are. Together, it is who you are, okay? So keep this framework in mind when you apply to your schools. The last but one slide, impact of COVID and admissions. Here are some of the main important things I want to say. SAT is not optional, ACT is not optional. If you've heard about optional, just completely ignore it. Okay? You need to go take the SAT, you need to work hard on the SAT, and you need to get amazing scores in SAT. You've been given so much free time this last 3 months. It has been an amazing vacation, so you guys are already rested. So this summer, you need to grind and kick the SAT as much as possible. The biggest benefit, because you guys gave me your time, here is the secret. So many students, so many parents have called and told me, Coach, SAT is optional, SAT is optional. You've been pressuring guys to take it. We don't have to take it, right? I am getting the general impression that most of the United States is not going to be taking SAT and ACT. Well, guess what? If you're hearing this presentation and your student takes the SAT and ACT and gets a humdinger score, they will secure admissions into top schools that the others are not going to get. Many amazing, brilliant students are going to be left behind because they have been confused with the SAT optional message. SAT optional or ACT optional does not mean that the schools won't look at a good SAT score and go, meh, this is not a good SAT score. You put in a 1500 score, are they going to say, no, we said SAT was optional, let's not consider that? Definitely no. They're 100% going to go. In fact, the fact that you went and took the SAT itself, in spite of the fact that it was optional, and not only you did well, you did amazingly well, is what's going to make you unique. So if you're 11th standard student and you haven't already taken the SAT or ACT and you took it, but you don't have a good score, the biggest secret I'm going to give you is most of your friends are going to do very, very poorly in SAT and ACT. They have been out of the school for a long time. The wheels are completely off. They have lost their structure, discipline, everything. I can't get my son to wake up at like 10 o'clock. He's telling, Daddy, you're waking me up early in the morning, and it's 10. He's waking up at 12 o'clock because he's playing video games all night. So most of your competition is like that. And what you're going to do is, and by the way, even the ones that are good, they've heard the SAT optional message and they're not taking the SAT. Okay, so that's the biggest thing. If you're an 11th standard student, that's my gratitude to you for listening to me for the last 90 minutes, is crush the SAT, crush it. You have had enough rest. You don't need any more rest. In the next 3 months, go and crush it. And I'm saying that you have to crush it because you're not going to have a lot of chances to take the SAT. And by the way, you're going to be, this is my prediction, the college deadlines are likely to move. So some of the colleges that have an early action deadline that October and November, I'm not 100% sure, but I predict that they're going to move more towards November and December, which means that you're going to have at least 2 to 3 attempts left. So even if the SAT starts in June or end of August, you will get 2 to 3 shots. Go and register for all of them. Do not send in your scores to the colleges yet. After you take all the 3 SAT tests, here's the other thing. Most of the schools today are super scoring, which means that you can put forward the best scores from multiple SAT exams. So my students, even the ones that the kid that got into MIT took it 3 times. The kid that went to Stanford took it 4 times. Okay? If you go to MIT website, they'll say, please do not tell us the number of times you took your test. Can you just put the highest score you took from any test in this box? Okay, and that's MIT, and that's Stanford, that's UPenn, that's Carnegie Mellon and Columbia. 95% of the schools are super scoring. Register for multiple SAT tests and ace it. Good? All right. Last slide. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think you're ready. You want to tell something, or we can open for the forum?
So the last thing I want to say is, as I mentioned in the beginning, I am not taking any more clients for the foreseeable future. When I say foreseeable future, at least at the end of September. And after September, if I have bandwidth, I might open up, but doesn't look likely. I would like to offer you something um, to the extent that I can. Okay, just purely out of to help you out, to the extent I can. There is, I went out and boldly put out my Calendly link where you can schedule a 1 hour appointment with me. There is no cost for this appointment. So if you want to schedule an appointment or send me a list of questions, I can answer it via email. I'll do the best that I can. I am not sure whether I can honor all the appointments. For example, if 60 people schedule several appointments, it'll be hard. I'm just saying I'll do my best to tell you what I can. I will obviously prioritize. When you do an appointment, it'll ask you for which grade it is. I will obviously prioritize if you're in 11th grade, as opposed to if you're in 8th, 9th, or 10th grade. I will probably send you a note, hey, can you wait until end of summer before I can talk to you, because I need to take care of these kids first. So if you're in 11th grade and you schedule an appointment, it's very likely that 100% likely that I will talk to you. If you're in 10th, 9th, and 8th, it will be my best effort. Scheduling the appointment at least gives me a connection for me to respond back to you saying that, hey, can we move this to September or October? That's all. Okay?
Right.
Thank you, Venkat. Thank you so much.
So we'll start the Q&A. I have a couple to start once you have a break. Multiple times you referred the top Ivy Leagues and next to Ivy Leagues. They take school ranking 1 to 3% or 5% or maximum 10%. At the same time, what is the role of SAT or ACT score in that admission process? I know it is well-rounded, but you mentioned multiple times about the ranking. So do you think SAT score also have very significant in
Yes. SAT and ACT score have extremely significant impact at that level of school. You're looking at, to get into the Ivies and MIT, Stanford, you're looking at something 1530 plus, okay? And to get into the next year, you're looking at somewhere around 1470 plus.
Okay, thank you. And one more question from my side, then I'll open up for the audience. Role of extracurricular activities getting into schools, not top Ivy or anything, but general, like California or the bigger states.
Right, generally.
Yeah. Well, before I come, I want to finish one thing. Like many of our kids right now into mostly athletics, like cross country, and they're doing very good, damn good in their school level. What are the chances them getting into a school purely on that basis, being an athlete, top athlete in the school?
Being a top athlete in the school does not change their admission chances. It makes them healthy as an individual. And I think that that's very important to stay physically and mentally fit, but it does not change their admission chances.
Okay, so you're saying no school offer, just purely basis on your athletic abilities?
I'm saying that being good at the school level in athletic ability, or even at the district level, does not change the admission probability curve.
Yeah.
Okay, you've got to go beyond, you got to go like state or national to actually make it count. So if you're doing athletics, broadly I'm saying, if you're doing athletics, I encourage you to continue doing athletics because it is superiorly healthy and it'll help them academically. Academically in the sense that they'll be more focused, they won't be distracted. There's a lot of good things from being physically fit. However, it will not, you shouldn't do it for the sake of college admissions, because to improve your for example, take a sport like swimming. To improve your margins, like by even fractional, 2 seconds or 3 seconds, the kids are already practicing from 5 a.m. in the morning. It's extremely hard to do it. And if you're like in 10th grade and you have to like cut down your swimming for 100 meters dash, you have to save like 5 seconds, and no one has done that to reach state level, then don't bother doing the swimming for the sake of college admissions. Just do the swimming for the sake of health. But being in swimming, being in tennis, being in a sport is part of you leading a healthy lifestyle. It does not, I would say that it helps you. Okay, you're an active student. It doesn't change the admission profile just because of that.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, Raj. I'm going from top to bottom. One question is, compared to same Duke tip, there's something called John Hopkins Young Talent Program. Is that good?
Yes, as I said, the Johns Hopkins program is one of the things that I remember about the Johns Hopkins program. It's one of the very few programs where you get to do actual dissections. Okay, so if you are going down the pre-med route, it is very, very difficult to get clinical and medical experiences. And JHU is one of the very few places to get that kind of experience. It's almost a must if you're applying for the combined BS MD program, which is direct to medical school. I would say go and do it. It is a paid program, but the difference there is nowhere else you will get to do dissection for free. There isn't anything else. So you have to look at, hey, did you have an alternative? You did not have an alternative. So that program is a must for BSMD students.
Not sure you have stats, but what percentage of Austin area high school kids get into Ivy Leagues?
Okay, if you're in Austin area, I'm just kind of curious. Just put in a number. When I say Ivies, I'm going to count Ivies plus MIT, Stanford. Because what number do you think from Austin area? When I'm saying Austin, I'm counting Austin, Georgetown, Round Rock, Lhasa.
Greater Austin area, basically.
The what?
Basically, you're telling about Greater Austin area.
Greater Austin area. Anybody from Austin area want to take a guess? 1%? Yeah, that's about right. 1% of all. If I can put a number, I would say less than 25.
Yeah, great. You mentioned multiple times so many schools. Somebody asked about, like, can you share a list of schools for top 5%, 5 to 15% as a slide list? I know we don't have a slide, but we're going to share this video, multiple channels, both Facebook and YouTube, public video. So you can go through that video one more time. Next is one question about one of the slides you mentioned about island. So question is, what if you don't have an island? So I would say create one, right?
Right. Yeah. So I think it is, that's a very important question, right? You do attempt to create it. You honestly go after it and you try to do it, but it's not feasible on a practical basis for a lot of students. If it is not feasible to create an island, here is what you do. Do one activity well, okay? So if you're in Scouts, get all the way up to Eagle Scouts. If you are volunteering, get all the way up to becoming a president. I will tell you the kind of volunteering you should not do for the sake of college admissions, okay? Soup kitchen, sandwiches, homeless people, all of that, you shouldn't do it for the sake of college admissions. You should do that for the sake of serving the community. It doesn't, these are all like duties that we have to do as a citizen. And because we have to do these duties as a citizen, taking care of our community, we cannot expect the admissions officers to like suddenly, wow, that we're helping the homeless, we're helping this. It just demonstrates that, okay, you have you have a lot of empathy for the community in a broader sense. But that very specific act, hey, I served so much bread, I served so much sandwiches or soup, should not in itself, uh, you shouldn't count it, and they don't count it.
All right. One quick question. When should we start preparing resume for the kid? Like which grade?
I think that mentally, right, as I said, thinking from as I said, don't think in terms of the college, but just think in terms of developing the fundamental skill set during eighth grade itself. The seventh, eighth is a great time not to start about college, but mainly to develop the fundamental skills. And the beauty is this, as a parent, Venkat, you can also agree that those are the last 2 years we have control over the kids, right?
Right.
Agreed?
Right.
Yes. Those are the last 2 years you have control over the kids. Then they come to like ninth and 10th grade. You left them. Then then you kind of get control after them after 12th and a freshman year. So whatever you feed them in 7th and 8th, it's an amazing time. They will eat it out of your hand. And so that's a good time. I would tell this to like parents. A lot of time it's just not the kids' fault or issue with college admissions. I think that parents also greatly play a role in not doing the right things about college admissions. And those things include putting too much pressure, putting the kid in too many activities, making the kid do this, that, and everything, thinking that something will work out. Okay, I'll send him to Taekwondo, I'll put him in tennis, I'll make him play chess, I will serve the homeless and do this and that. And then hopefully when college admissions times comes, I hope all of this counts. Okay. So when you stretch the kid that much, meanwhile, he's not getting a 4 or 5 on his calculus AP test. His rank is not high up there, and his SAT practice or ACT is behind schedule. So all the activities that sometimes parents make a mistake by dragging them into like many different things impacts the child a lot. So parents, the most important thing, if you have to sacrifice extracurricular activities, if you are looking at academics and you're looking at extracurricular activities for the sake of college admissions, then simply focus on academics, give them the support and everything. Extracurricular activities is a luxury after you have come to a reasonable level of academics. Extracurricular activities is not a substitute for academics. The only time in extracurricular activities is a substitute for academics is if the extracurricular activity is at a national level.
Like
you got it? If you can get your child to a national level in extracurricular activities, it counts. If it does not, then let them do extracurricular activities for the fun of it and things like that. If you're shaping an island and he's got an island, all of these things, validate it, take care of it. And then finally, if you have a son or a kid who is struggling to get a good grade in class and be within the top 20%, please don't bother about a lot about extracurricular activities. Just focus on their academics. There is one thing I noted that, I asked you guys to remind me in case I forgot about why a lot of information on the internet does not pertain to you. Even when I said, right, this is the reason, even when I said extracurricular activities do not count, what I mean is for whom it does not count. If you are lower than 20%, which means like you're in the top 20 to 30%, extracurricular activities is not going to make a difference getting a college admissions. If you're in the 5 to 15% range, just kind of creating an island and being focused on your extracurricular activities matters, because you have demonstrated academic strength and now you're bringing up with your extracurricular activities. Kids that are in the top 1 to 3%, for some reason they're amazingly good in some extracurricular activity and they end up knocking it out of the ballpark anyway. So for them, it is not a problem. This is what I meant by saying whether an extracurricular activity is important or not. I am saying both. It is important and it is not important. And that depends upon where your grades are.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions from the middle school parents asking about pre-AP, the tag is better. Can you just address?
Yeah, so be very careful about one of the common mistake that Indian parents do is do a lot of high school classes in middle school, right? In 8th grade itself, you want to do the 9th grade and 10th grade. In 7th grade, they do the 9th grade classes, and in 10th grade, they do the 11th grade, 10th grade classes,
Right.
okay? Yeah, in 7th, you do the 9th grade class, and in 8th, you do the 10th grade class. Well, guess what? It's not a good idea. You know why? Because the first math class he's going to take, Venkat, can you guess what's the first math he will take if you already finished the 9th and 10th math in middle school? What is the first math he will take as a freshman?
AP calculus, pre-AP.
AP calculus. Do you know how much AP calculus counts for? 6 points. Do you know how much pre-algebra counts for? 6 points.
Same thing.
So, exactly the same. So, what have you done? This is where I said parents can make a mistake, right? You've gone and pushed your son to take a very hard subject in 9th grade to get 6 points. I'm talking about a GPA of 6-point scale, whereas his friends are taking easy classes like pre-AP algebra, which your son took in 7th grade, and they're getting 100, and your kid is getting an 85. And then what happens after 9th? He comes to 10th. Since he already taken pre-AP Calc, he has to do Calculus BC or Calculus AB. They're not going to let him go. And when he comes to 10th, he will do the next level of calculus. So you've set him up for harder and harder classes when it had made no difference. If your son or daughter is really capable of getting 100 in all the math classes, it's fine. But just simply overloading them with high school classes in middle school does not do good, because they lose out on a lot of fundamentals. The middle school pre-calc and pre-algebra and geometry is not the same thing that you will learn in high school. And so you kind of take one of those easy classes, you get a grade, you don't develop your fundamentals, and you go to high school and you're faced with a tough class without good foundation.
I heard the different setups in this process. Education very popular in Austin area for counseling. So the director told me when colleges are picking up the student, they see how hard they took the classes, not the easy ones. So,
right. So yes, they. Okay, so here again, there is this broad information, right? How hard? Let's dissect that. Colleges look at how hard you look at the classes. Okay. If you are a super student who's in the top percent of the class, 1, 2, and 3, of course, go and finish your high school and middle school itself and go to high school and do all the college classes. But what you did was you did not compromise on your rank. Here is a secret formula, the most important formula that schools use. It is called R by N, okay? Where R stands for rank and N stands for the number of students in the graduating class. The lower the R by N ratio is, the higher the number of points you're given during college admissions, okay? So if you are like 5 out of 100 students, your R by N is going to be like 5 by 100. If you are 20 out of 1,000 students, your R by N is much better, okay? the first thing that comes up in anything, when you take up the application, right, the first thing is the rank and the GPA shows up. The strength of the courses are important, but they're kind of hidden behind that number. You cannot argue. Let's look at two profiles. You have a student who's ranked number 10. You have a student that is like ranked number 50. Okay. You have to really go behind and technically look at the transcripts to see what the coding is for whether they are the strongest classes or not. To a greater degree, the GPA and the rank, because schools use weighted GPA and they give weighted points for higher level classes, it automatically, to a lot of extent, captures it. Okay, so that's a very strategic play you have to do. If you're applying to the IVs and things like that, yes, go and do pre-calc or even calc in as a freshman. But if you're not at that level, then don't play that game. Play the game of improving your rank, because that has a much bigger impact than the course load you have taken, because your rank shows up first and the coursework kind of hidden. Can you imagine thousands of transcript? You really have to go to the transcript to see this.
Yeah, that makes
The rank shows up right there.
right. All right. I have a question on the immigration side actually. Or
Please.
to get into a medical school if you are a permanent residency or with a green card. I actually add one more to that one. Like if you are in a visa, like H4, how hard it to get into medical schools?
This is almost a new phenomenon that we haven't faced yet. It is going to be a little bit challenging. Most of the medical schools are state funded. The private medicals, and they have requirements like residency requirements and citizenship requirements and all of that. The private medical schools might be much open to those still on H4 than medical schools that are college based. I don't know fully about that issue, because you're right. I am, for the first time, because the fact that it is taking a long time to get green cards, I have started seeing this issue. I would say that, it's one of those things that, rather than worrying about medical school, just take a day at a time and just focus on your grades, get good grades. And maybe that will open much more doors for you than broadly worrying about whether an H4 can get into a medical school or not. So I really don't know. This is very new. I definitely, you are at a bit of a disadvantage. So yeah, that's all I can say.
All right. Question on, do you think there's any difference between magnet high schools and regular high schools in regards to college admissions? Actually, I add one more question. The IB program, he kind of answered it, but one more time. It's really
Sure.
going to make a
Okay.
difference.
I have not seen any difference in admission chances between those that did an IB program and those that did an AP program. Okay. There are lots of liberal arts honors program that kind of specifically like IB candidates, like Plan 2 at UT. There are, for example, if you're going to Brown and Dartmouth or Yale, which are liberal schools, the IB program might be attractive. AP is obviously very popular. And with AP, you will see in all the application forms, you have this thing of AP distinction, AP scholar, and all of that. So you get to check boxes with your AP that you're not able to check with your IB. In fact, all the IB students in the last 2 weeks are sitting home and chilling because they don't have the AP exams. I say that do whatever makes you competitive in terms of R by N. Okay, just etch that formula in your head. R by N comes first before IBs or IB or AP. If you can minimize your R by N with an IB, and that's the route to go, do an IB. If that's going to impact your R by N, then go and do your APs. If you're a super student and you're going to, yes, there are some students I have, I look at their grades, it's like, didn't matter. You put them in anything, you put them in AB plus IB, they will rank top 3, top 5 in the class. If you're like that, then go and do an IB. It's generally a little more challenging and it's not going to impact your grades because you are a top student. But if it's going to impact your grades, you will generally be better served with a higher GPA. I say generally, right? There's always exceptions. There are where different colleges choose different types of students. Overall, GPA wins. GPA is king. Like just cash is king, GPA is king.
Question on local schools. Multiple questions. One is, should we send it to better school, like if they're attending, say, McNeil, going to Westwood?
Correct.
Will increase. Alternatively, other question is it beneficial to join a low-grade school to get into college admission? So.
Okay. So I'll rank the schools in Austin. If you're in Austin, it's Lhasa, Westlake, Westwood, and the rest. Okay. As to whether going to Westwood, Lhasa, or Westlake would be beneficial for you, they would be beneficial if you go to the schools and you are aiming to go to the top schools in the country and you can actually get the rank up there to be there. So you graduate from Westwood within the top 3% or Lhasa or Westlake. If your son or daughter is capable of getting those grades and you want them to be so challenged, then you go there, okay? Otherwise, stay put where you are. As to whether you want to move to like a lower school so that you can improve your chances, you're not going to flip the scale. Let us say that let's say you go to, I'll give an example. Let's rank these schools. You have the top tier schools, and then you have a set of middle tier schools, and then you have a set of third tier schools, right? Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and tier 1 is the best and tier 3 is the worst, okay? By going from tier 2 to a tier 3 schools, you might be able to improve your rank, and that rank might secure you admissions into, like I say, like the second tier of colleges that I mentioned, okay? But it's not going to flip it in favor of going to Ivies or MIT or Stanford, because they know that. They know that's a tier 3 schools and they're not going to pick it up. And I put somewhere in the presentation that school matters a lot for admission. But going from tier 2 to tier 3 will definitely help get admission in the next band of schools, because it again impacts the R by N formula. The rank is a very, very low number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then tier 3 schools, unfortunately, have a large population. They have like 800, 900,000 students. So because of that, the ratio is very, very palatable.
Quick question for medical program. What classes should be a student taking in high school?
Not, yeah, just your regular school. When you're talking medical program, are you talking about getting into the BS MD program, or are you talking about getting into pre-med?
It's not specific. I'm guessing maybe pre-med actually. Basically, if somebody wants to be a doctor, what should be they focusing in high school?
Oh my God, it's so interesting that you asked this question. I'll tell you why. Just yesterday, I finished a medical college application. Medical college, okay? This kid has finished his college, okay? And he said, I asked him, okay, how do you feel? He said, man, I'm going to medical college. I have taken no classes related to medical college at all.
In the high school?
He did his biology, biochemistry, something like that. He said nothing related to medical at all. You know, maybe if I had done some anatomy or physiology, it would have related a lot. So here's the thing. We just applied to medical school, and that student was telling, man, I did nothing related to medicine, you know. And this is somebody applying to medical school. You're only applying to a pre-med program. If you want to get into a competitive pre-med program, you just have to get good scores in your class. Okay, there isn't any specific set of classes that you have to take. I want to give you another amazing secret. Okay, as I said, I'm not holding anything back. I am treating you guys as if you were my real clients. And here is something that I tell my clients. And again, you have to take it with as to which type of student this applies to. Okay, everything is based upon the student's caliber. If you have a student that is around 15%, okay, somewhere between 11 to 15% at 10th grade, then you really want to get them into the top 10%. Okay, there is some magic number, right? Top 10%. 12%, 12.5%, 13, 13.5, 14, they're all the same. You know, what difference does it make? So what you do is, if math is your weakest subject, skip math in 11th. Okay? If science is your weakest subject, skip science in your 11th. The formula is do all the hardest subjects that you're weak in your 12th grade, because the colleges do not take the 12th grade into account. You can get a C, you can get a B minus in your classes, and it does not count towards your college admissions GPA. And then in 11th class, in 11th grade, if you are like around 11.5% or 12%, go and take all the GPA booster classes to come to like 8%. Okay. So Venkat, you asked me that, hey, you know, you heard that, colleges look for, what difficult classes you have taken. It is true, but let's think about Texas, right? Texas is saying without 6%, UT doesn't even, that's a cutoff. You know, we're not taking students outside 6% for regular admission. Okay. So let us say that you are teetering around 6.5% or 7%, and you're in 10th grade. Your student just graduated 10th grade. He's 7%. He wants to go to UT. Well, UT is not going to take him unless he's in the top 6%. You have a choice to make. Are you going to take the most difficult classes and impress UT by coming in at top 8%? Or are you going to impress UT by taking the easiest classes and getting into 5.5%? Right?
So it makes sense. Like what exactly you're targeting is the key.
Yes. Now, if you're a top 3% student, you want to go to UT, and you just graduated 10th grade, you're like 3 or 4%, and you're going there to do chemistry, biology. You have so much buffer. Okay. Even if you drop 2 percentage points, you will still come to 6%. So even if you take the hardest classes and you're like, okay, let me throw in a couple of B's because I got my hardest classes, calculate what your GPA is, you're within the top 6%, go ahead and take the hardest classes. But don't try to be a hero by taking the hardest classes when you might miss out on the chance. But be a hero when you really have the chance to become a hero. And Venkat is right. The hardest classes that you take appeals to them, but also look at your caliber to take the hardest classes. If you're like 11.5%, find out what subjects you're weak at, postpone it to 12th, take the easiest subject, and then come in at 10%. Because the college profile sheet that they send, remember in the beginning I said, somebody said, hey, even though we don't have a rank, there's something called as a college profile that they send out that has this band which goes 0 to 5%, then 5% to 10%, and then sometimes it goes to like 10 to 20. And you might be like 10.5, but you're now grouped with a student who is like 19.9.
Right.
So,
So basically you're saying you need to check both what kind of
yes,
and also your school rank, how it's going to impact you.
exactly. What Venkat said is absolutely right. You need to check what hardest close, what that means to you. How does the school profile go? If I'm like 10.5%, do everything you can to get into the top 10 so they can put you in the top 10%. If you're 5.5, do everything to get you into the top 5%. If you're within 5, you have a lot of room to play.
Yeah, on the same topic, very interesting question from my audience. What advantage of taking pre-AP Spanish 4 in sophomore year versus AP Spanish language and culture? So the kid is eligible for both. Pre-AP will be easier and better for GPA, but AP class will give her college credit. Which
Okay.
should she prefer?
So broadly, individual classes, okay? Individual classes, this versus that. At that level, keep this example in mind. I'm starting somewhere, but you will get a point. UT closes for summer, for the winter break around December 25th. The college admissions package is due a regular decision on January 1st or something like that. January 1st or right before Christmas, okay? And then somewhere around February 15th, they start notifying the admission decisions. They receive about 15 to 20,000 applicants, and they are making decision for about 4 to 6,000 students within 6 weeks. Okay, the individual level of classes is not. They don't have time. You think you ask yourself, if you were the admissions officers, you're getting 20,000 applicants, you have 6 weeks to process 6,000 applications. The individual level classes do not matter. The way I will look at taking, let's not focus on just the Spanish or something. Let's say you have an option to take course A or course B, okay? How do you make a decision? This is how I, as a college admissions coach, make a decision. Taking A or B, what does it mean immediately to my GPA? That's the first thing I look at, okay? When a student asks me, I said, hey, how is it weighted? If they say, coach, it's weighted the same. I get 6 points, whether I take pre-AP or I take AP, I look at 6 points. Then I ask her, what did you score last time on your on this class in the previous level? I scored 100, coach. Okay, if you scored 100, then take the most difficult one because you're capable of doing it. And so take B, which is slightly harder because I'm confident that you will get 100. The second thing that I use is, what is the impact of taking A or B for next year, right? So remember, if you want to plan out taking A or B, and let's say B is harder than A, but both of them give you the same grade, fine. What happens the next semester? Does that mean that they have to take a more advanced class because they took B? And will your son be able to handle it? Is the question. I know of real good students whose GPA has been thoroughly impacted because they started with extremely high level classes and the school ran out of classes. This is a true story in Virginia. This student came from a different school district and she had done most of her high school classes by the time she finished 10th grade. And now she isn't going to 11th. They're sending her to some pre-college prep kind of college because they don't have courses to give her. So they're forcing her to take college level classes in 11th grade. And so that is the other thing you would look at. So the two things is between two classes, what is the impact of the GPA now? Okay, if the impact of A is greater than B, then do A. If the impact is B is greater than A, then do B. Make the determination based upon the student's potential from last year, and then also strategically look at what is the impact for the next year.
Right. Thank you. I have one question. For an average student in 9th grade, what are the good colleges for engineering and computer science? He didn't mention in around.
Okay, I'll tell you, the generally good colleges for computer science, Rice, Austin, UT Austin, Texas A&M. Of course, you know, right up there is Carnegie Mellon, but let me go for some realistic schools. Cornell, you know, Purdue, Georgia Tech, University of Michigan, University of Washington, St. Louis, Maryland, Wisconsin, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, Texas A&M, any engineering program. These are all fantastic schools, amazing placements to do computer science.
Thank you. Quick question on SAT, ACT, and PSAT. When should you start SAT and ACT practice? One question. The second is, what about the PSAT? What is the significant? What to prepare? When to take?
So, PSAT is significant if you get a significant score. Simple as that. If you get like national merit, you're like top 1-2% in PSAT, it is significant. If you're not going to get to national merit, don't waste your time on the PSAT. Okay? Again, this is all about doing what matters. So let's look at PSAT. You have classes that are ongoing and you have a PSAT that is coming. Will taking your son or daughter away from his regular classes and putting in a PSAT prep impact his R by N? Then don't. Don't touch. R by N is sacred. That's your God. You don't touch that. Okay? So if his R by N is not going to be impacted and he can go do his PSAT, let him do it. And if he can prepare for his PSAT and get a national merit without impacting his R by N, then let him do it. If your R by N gets affected, then don't put them in any special PSAT. Getting a national merit in PSAT helps. They ask in college applications, did you get national merit? The question is, so what are you going to do about this? Are you going to send him to a separate prep school to prepare for his PSAT? Yes or no, depends upon whether you're going to touch R by N or not.
Also, when to prepare for ACT or SAT?
Okay, all right. I'll tell you what the deadline is to prepare for the sequence that I typically put my students through. At the end of summer of their sophomore year, right? 10th summer, end of summer, I have them take a baseline SAT or ACT. They will prepare through summer and give me a baseline score. That will give me a chance to tell them what type, where they stand and all of that. Don't put it off. Go and take it. As I said, you can take it as many times, so definitely take it at the end of summer. It'll give you a good starting point. Then prepare and polish during September, October, and November. So in November, there is going to be an exam like November 20, just before Thanksgiving. So since it doesn't interfere with your final exams, take your second attempt in November. Look at the scores during your Christmas time, your scores will come. Reflect on the scores, and then do your last attempt in March of your junior year. There will be a test that comes along the spring break time, March 14th to 21st, there will be an SAT or ACT test. So that should be a target. So working it back, the summer of 10th, fall of 11th, and then the first half of spring semester of 11th. There is no need to prepare for 1 year, 2 year, and things like that. This is the formula I have used. It's always worked. The timing works perfectly. Once you get the scores in March, then it's easy to start looking at, okay, the summer, I know I already have my March scores and I can start applying for colleges and preparing for my application in summer. One other very important tip that I'm going to give you, because Venkat put tips and tricks, right? So when you register for a SAT or an ACT exam, I'm going to give you two important things. I'm sorry, I forgot it. The second one is perhaps a lot more important than the first one. The first one is when you apply for your SAT or ACT, for some tests, you have the option to get your question paper back, which means your answer sheet can come back to you. It is called score reporting service. It costs only $15, and many people don't understand what it is. It is actually the paper that you took. They'll tell you where you made a mistake. That is so important for you to reflect back where you made a mistake rather than getting a score like, okay, I got 740 or 650. I don't know where I made a mistake. That doesn't tell you any intelligence. So when you register for a test, see if you have a score reporting service and do that. Somebody told me that even PSAT has a score reporting service. Okay, I am not sure. So all my students, I insist that they do the score reporting service so that I can do a review with them on where they are weak and where they are strong. The next thing that I want to talk about is something that is very, very different. Going from 8th standard to 9th standard and things like that, we as parents may not want to believe this, okay? The children go through a lot of changes, and these changes affect them psychologically. And unfortunately, as parents, we're not aware of the psychological stress that they go through. They may need psychological counseling. They may need psychological support. You have to pay very close attention to if there are things like that that are impacting their performance. The late night studying, the pressure of high school, a lot of kids develop anxiety. They develop depression, and you don't know that. And it's right there in front of you. What I'm going to say is this. The school systems fall under the Federal Disability Act, okay? The Federal Disability Act applies to learning. If your son or daughter has problems learning, our Indian mentality is maybe they're not working hard or they're not grabbing the material and things like that. But it could be because of a psychological issue. And if you recognize it and seek treatment and support for it, then by federal law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, Section 504, the schools have to provide them accommodation and have to provide them support. I can tell you some very simple things that the schools can do. If there are kids that are unable to take an exam in a very noisy room, they do well when the room is quiet. The school can provide you accommodation for that. There are some kids that do well when there is only one question written on a paper. And this is a true fact. I knew of a student, she had some issues with her eyes. When she looks at her math paper and there are like 10 or 15 problems over there, her eyes just kind of gets messed up. You know, we never think of this as an issue. So and she fortunately she was honest and she told me, coach, my parents are like sending me to more and more tuition classes. I can do math. It's just that when I sit in the exam, I get just all messed up because at the exam I have 15 questions on one page. Then we spoke to the school and explain the situation. So under the Americans with Disabilities Act, the school had to print only one question on a paper. So if there were 15 questions, each question was printed on 15 papers. And then what's more, then she also said, you know what? I'm doing well with this thing. Let me take it in the computer lab. She went and took it in the computer lab. Her score significantly improved. And that was it. That was written into her file. So anytime this person wants to take a test, because she has anxiety, because she has this rolling eye problem, there are all kinds of things that these people have, that the school will come and support them. This is an extremely important information that I have shared with you, because it's not only we as parents owe to ourselves to reach and help our children, the schools actually have the mechanism to support it. Remember, I gave you an example where one kid told me, Coach, I'm not able to turn in my homework. I'm so disorganized. And then they found out that the school has a counselor for disorganized kid, and he's in a program to help being organized.
Nice.
Okay, so seek help.
Right.
By law, they're supposed to give you help.
Very good tips, Raj. Appreciate it. A couple of people asked about the recordings. Yes, we are going to, it is recording. The best way to see is, if you are not in our email list, go to Facebook, make a friend request to Telugu Austin, or like the page Telugu Cultural Association Austin. You will get all the information from there. So this recording will be published both in Facebook as well as YouTube. Those links will be shared here, and also we will share in many other groups too. But best way is to through Facebook if you are new to TCA. Thank you. And I think many questions people asked at the end actually repeated. So it's a bit late, so I don't want to go back.
Yes.
I have one interesting question for pre-med. If for an average student in high school, what are the best schools for pre-med medical? As you said, for engineering, you have any names for
Yes.
pre-med and medical?
I think that I think it's a very good way to conclude this thing. The best schools for obviously a lot of it depends on the state, right? So at the national level, there are schools like University of Washington at St. Louis. Johns Hopkins Medical School is another great school for pre-med. George Washington University in Washington, D.C. is another fantastic school. University of Maryland is another excellent school for pre-med. If you want to look at Ivy League, UPenn obviously is a very good school for pre-med. I would say this, keep your pre-med very, very simple. Pre-med is a marathon. This is the analogy you need to have. You're going to be running 26.2 miles. What you don't want to do is when you run a marathon, which is like 4 years of college, 4 years of med school, 4 years of residency, and then maybe 2 or 3, 4 years of residency, and then another 2 to 3 years of fellowship, right? You want to start burning the student at the very beginning itself, okay? So you can go to a very competitive and amazing top school to do a pre-med. It does have some drawbacks. So it's not so much the thing is not so much the great pre-med schools like Washington, WashU, and Johns Hopkins. It's not about going there. It's about what will happen if you go there. What if you got burnt out in 4 years? And that is like, instead of running the first 10 miles of a marathon very calmly, you ran the first 10 miles like a sprint. Now you're exhausted and you're looking at another 10 more years ahead of you, another 16.2 miles, and you're tired to run. Okay. So there's lots of, I think that a good pre-med school is one where you would visit, which is local to you. Ask them the percentage of students that made it to medical school, and that would be a good pre-med on an average. Otherwise, JHU or WashU, Maryland, at the national level, University of Texas at Austin, they all have amazing pre-med programs.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. One final surprise nobody asked, but about the unofficial quota decided by these Ivy Leagues or branded schools about Indian or Asian student. So something called affirmative action.
Correct.
So can just address like 2 minutes. Is that
Yes.
true? What ways we can get through?
Okay. There isn't like the schools do not use a quota system based on race. However, the truth is they do definitely go for diversity. And one way you will find this is at UPenn, where I attended 2 years ago. I saw this thing. They said by 2020, 1 out of every 5 students have to be, what is it called? First generation or low income. Okay, which means that their parents have not gone to school, college, and low income. Okay, and if you have that combination of low income and first generation, they're talking about 1 out of 5. That's a significant amount. Unfortunately, in our Asian community, I do not know anyone who does not have a college degree. So it's not a quota. It applies to you, except that we all happen to have degrees, unfortunately. And that means that we are now competing only with the remaining 80% of the space. So it is true, roughly about, and it is not secret, they had it on the website. So it does impact Asian Americans disproportionately, because when they go for diversity, I think they cannot just have one race occupy the entire college campus. That not be a great learning experience. And when they have to divide it up, sometimes it appears that we're on the short end of the stick.
Thank you so much, Raj. I would conclude, give us another few minutes. We have a TCA helpline for COVID situation. If you guys have any issues or need some kind of help, please do call. And also we have a COVID resource page. Go to austintelugu.org, COVID-19 Austin resources. Also, if you want to reach us, we have a contact page on our website, austintelugu.org. Also, we are collecting small funds for a COVID situation, very small donations to help out students. We are receiving actually many requests from the community. Any amount, like maybe it could be $10, $15, $20. Do us with our PayPal made at TCA Austin. With this, I want to conclude by giving to current President Brahmendra Lakku a lot of thanks, and also will conclude the call.
Thank you, Raj. This is very good information for the community. You take a long time with your patients and everything. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so far all the feedback is very nice. If you are reading in the charter,
I didn't.
First time attended. Yeah, it's very, very informative. Reason is many things people, as you said, like when you research on internet, things come with different directions, and everyone got their own idea of how to get into a dream college or going to certain college. Things actually clears up a lot, I hope. And I attended before, so I kind of know, but very useful for first timers. Thanks again, Raj Garu.
There's one final comment I want to make, that the TCA people and the committee members worked so hard behind this to make this happen. This was a very casual conversation about a couple of weeks. And I said, okay, I have to do something. And they did this thing. And as I said, as I promised you, I didn't hold anything back. I've given everything that I've got. So I hope that you support the community by supporting TCA. They have a COVID donation aspect to it. I strongly encourage you to consider that. That will be a nice way for these gentlemen sitting here and making this presentation. And hopefully you all found it useful, and you can show that support to TCA through their donation.
Thank you, Raj.
Raj. And just want to say this is one of our marathon session, close to 3 hours. So thank you. You are the one person talking most of it. So it's not easy. So thanks again.
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll end the session. We'll share the recording, everything very soon. Thanks
Okay.
again, guys. Closing to stop the.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.